Relaxing in a beautiful hotel in Paris with the cutest French boy smiling at you from across the pool is just perfectly splendid in every way. My personal assistant / best friend Lexi rushed towards me while holding a letter. She read it out loud. "Fancy a date on my yacht tonight? Meet me at 7 on the harbor." The boy across the pool winked at me. That night, I learned that his name was Pierre, and he treated me like a princess. But our splendid date was interrupted by a panicked call from Lexi. "Your dad's secretary called, and he's just sent the jet for us to leave right now." Ugh, he must have been mad because I'd been absent from school for a week now. I so didn't need school. I said my goodbyes to Pierre, who said he wanted to see me again, but I just smiled and left. Oh, hey there. My name is Blair, and I have an almost perfect life. I'm as smart as Einstein himself. There's only one little problem. I'm dyslexic. But it's no big deal because I have Lexi to read everything for me. I used to be number 1 in literally everything, but things took a wild turn when a foreign exchange student joined our class. Please hit that subscribe button before I tell you my whole story. The next day, my limo dropped Lexi and me off at our school, a very expensive private one, where only families with a net worth of at least $1 billion can attend. "Blair, watch out!" I screamed when I saw an angry dog charging towards me. What was it doing here? Pets aren't allowed. Francesca, my arch nemesis, picked it up while laughing at me. "Good boy," she whispered, but I heard it. This insecure brat always found a way to ruin my day. "Oh, hey, Blair. I'm giving out our newest luxury product, this $1 million perfume, for free. I thought you might need one." "Thanks, Francesca, but I'd rather donate it to charity." The principal appeared and got angry when she saw her dog. "Our dog mansion with 10 floors is currently being renovated, so my baby needs to roll with me." Ugh, what a show-off. The principal shut her mouth when Francesca gave her a stupid perfume, too. In the middle of class, I suddenly forgot how to breathe when the most gorgeous boy that I'd ever seen walked in. "Everyone, I would like you all to meet Terrence, a foreign exchange student from Korea, and he will be with us for this school year." We were all speechless as we looked at him. Francesca immediately offered her seat, but Terrence just headed quietly to the back. Our math teacher then started the discussion and suddenly asked us to solve the area of a stadium on our tables. Such a no-brainer. The answer is, it's 69,963 square meters. We all turned to Terrence like we'd seen a ghost. He'd answered before me. Like, how? After class, all the girls flocked around him, including Lexi. I tried to smile at him too, but he didn't smile back. What a snob. I snatched Lexi away from him and told her to cut it out. "Do that again and I'll fire you." "Oh, come on, Blair. He's literally perfect. He's like Lee Min-ho." "He's not my type." Terrence might have heard that because he turned to me, but so what? He snubbed me, and first impressions last. Every year, our principal holds an auction party, and this year, all the proceeds would be going to poor children in Africa. The last item to be auctioned was a beautiful pearl with a special history. It cost around $50 million. As expected, Francesca and I started the bidding battle. 100 million, 200 million, 500 million. 1 billion. Then the principal asked if anyone wanted to go any higher. Lexi leaned closer to me and tried to stop me, but I couldn't let Francesca win. 2 billion. 10 billion. Silence filled the room when a male voice joined in and said, $100 billion. Everyone turned to the back. It was Terrence again. He really was something else. The principal declared, "Wow, that's a new record. Sold." My eyebrows shot up when I saw Francesca offering him a handshake in a flirty way. Lexi said, "I think you two look better together." Ew, stop that, Lexi. He's a snob and only loves his phone. During our finals week, as usual, I took a special oral exam because of my reading condition. When the results came back the next day, the blood drained from my face when I didn't see my name at the top spot. It was Terrence. He hadn't even been in our school a full year. Then Francesca appeared from nowhere and said, "Just accept the fact that you're a loser now, Blair." I asked Lexi to do some research on Terrence. I needed to know what was up with him. He seemed like the love child of Einstein and Bill Gates. One day, while I was rushing to the toilet, I bumped into him and tripped over. Jeez. His chest was as hard as a tree. I looked up at him and met his cold, brown eyes. I was expecting him to offer his hand, but the jerk skipped past me like I was trash on the floor. I'd never felt so humiliated. It was the first time a guy had ignored me. Lexi came to the rescue and helped me to my feet. He helped me when I tripped out of my helicopter yesterday. Sorry, girl, but you're not his type. Francesca's comment made me furious. Thank God Lexi calmed me down, or else. During lunch, Lexi told me that she'd finally finished her research on Terrence. He was a young CEO in Korea, and his company develops games and software. That's why he's always on his phone. So, he's a self-made billionaire. Interesting. I was on my way to our campus's art center one time, and I stopped when I saw a board ahead. It had some words on it. Francesca and her friends were right behind me, but I didn't want to ask her for help, so I tried to read it myself. It seemed to be saying something about a vacation. I ignored the sign and continued walking. Suddenly, the ground under me collapsed. Someone caught me right on time before I was buried alive. I looked up to see my savior. It was Terrence. He let me go and dusted his uniform off. Don't you know how to read? It says deep excavation ahead. I have dyslexia. Anyway, thanks for saving my life. And it felt really weird. I was about to move, but the way he played was hypnotizing. I flinched when I felt a spark as our fingers touched. He looked down at me after he finished playing. That's how you do it. I don't need piano lessons right now. We need to plan a strategy. Just focus on the spelling. Memorize the letters of the longest words, and we'll be fine. Don't underestimate me, Terrence. How about you? Are you going to study? The dummy answered me with a poker face and left the room. Sometimes I really hated his guts and his gorgeous face. And seriously, he was so confusing. The competition day finally came and we were totally silent during the ride. He later fell asleep on my shoulder and I went stiff as a board. Should I move my shoulder or should I let him sleep in peace? The limo passed over a rough road which woke him up. He looked up at me and I immediately looked away. Can you, scoot over? You're in my personal space. My heartbeat went back to normal when he moved. I was so nervous during the game, but as expected, we made it to the final round. Terrence won the versus round against another boy, and then it was my turn. I needed to win this so we would be the winners already. I was shocked when the announcer said that it was a spelling round. Oh no. Spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Terrence gave me an encouraging look. I focused and wrote down all the letters according to my memory. I felt like passing out from nervousness when I slowly raised my answer. Correct. I jumped around in happiness and found myself hugging Terrence. When I realized what I was doing, I immediately pulled away. He then patted my head and smiled at me for the first time. And I must admit, he looked even more gorgeous. You did great. Well, thanks for your advice. Lexi showed up to congratulate us. Oh my gosh, you guys were so good. You two should get married already. Ugh, Lexi and her random fangirling. Terrence smiled at me in the hallway the next day, and it made me feel something in my stomach. What a miracle that he wasn't wearing his headphones and holding his phone in front of his face. Suddenly, the girls started screaming. I went to see what was happening and was shocked to see Pierre in our school uniform. He was showing everyone my pictures that he took on his phone. Oh, finally. There's my girl. Pierre immediately walked up to me and kissed me on the cheek. What are you doing here? I told you. I wanted to see you again. I enrolled in your school just to be with you. I didn't know what to say. Pierre kept following me around and it bothered me. I wanted to turn him down, but I felt bad for breaking a nice guy's heart. Mademoiselle, come. I have a surprise for you. I told Pierre that I still had a class, but he grabbed my arm and was about to pull me outside when someone grabbed my other arm. It was Terrence. Come on, we're running late already. Everyone stopped in their tracks to watch. Terrence and Pierre were glaring at each other, and there I was, looking like a statue between them. Neither of them wanted to let me go, and it was so awkward. I caught Lexi's eye and gave her the signal to help me. She acted like she sprained her ankle and purposefully fell on Pierre. Lexi then winked at me as Pierre turned to help her. She was the best. I didn't know how to get rid of Pierre over the next few days. Terrence started avoiding me too. Once, when I went into class, Pierre winked at me and told me to come and sit next to him. I said, Pierre, I just want to be clear that you're not my boyfriend. Yet. That night, Francesca threw a party on her own private island and invited everyone. I didn't want to go, but Pierre was so persistent. During the party, he was telling me about his plan to buy a resort in Paris. He was talking nonstop while all I could think about was Terrence. I wished he was here. I signaled Lexi to start our plan. I excused myself to the restroom as she came over and I let her entertain Pierre. I sneaked out and found myself in a beautiful garden. While I was smelling some flowers, I suddenly felt someone's presence beside me. I turned to see Terrence. "You're here. I didn't think you'd come." "Francesca came over to my place yesterday and invited me." "What?" I wanted to ask him what else she did at his place, but I chickened out. He was looking up at the sky and suddenly a snowflake dropped on his forehead and he slowly closed his eyes. It was a beautiful moment, and I just found myself staring. "It's the first snow of the year." "Oh. Is it?" He seemed to be so happy about it, and I wondered why. "Where's your boyfriend?" "He's not my boyfriend. I just met him in Paris last time I was there." "I'm relieved." "What do you mean?" The snow continued falling over us. He stepped closer and suddenly kissed me on the forehead. "I like you, Blair." I wasn't expecting that. My heartbeat was so loud I was shaking. Moments later, I finally gave in to my attraction. I think I like you too." "Let's get out of here." I told him that only my dad had access to our helicopter, but he just gave me a smug smile and said, "That's not a problem." Did he plan ahead or what? The helicopter flew us to a beautiful place, and while we were enjoying the marvelous view beneath us, I felt his hand holding mine. It gave me an electric feeling. I'd never felt this way before. After our helicopter date, he brought me to this Korean restaurant and made me taste their delicious specialties. We fought over the bill and he won and paid for it. I then gave the waiter a tip, a key to a car. "That's very generous of you, but I prefer giving tips like this." He gave the waiter a business card and told him that his secretary would assist him in enrolling in the school of his choice. "Education is more important, Blair." Oh, he was wiser than I thought. It was almost midnight when we strolled in the park. When I complained about my high heels hurting my feet, he gave me a piggyback ride. This man had never failed to surprise me. We were inseparable over the next few weeks, while Lexi always ended up distracting Pierre. One day, Terrence was teaching me Korean when Lexi kept calling me. I was enjoying our session, so I ignored her calls. Later that day, I was on my way to my locker when I saw Francesca's dog again. It started chasing me and I ran into the nearest room. While I was catching my breath, I was surprised to see Pierre in there too. "Bonjour, mademoiselle. Miss me?" Before I could react, he suddenly kissed me. I was so shocked that I couldn't move. I slapped him and walked out to look for Lexi, but I couldn't find her anywhere. She wasn't answering my calls either. Where was she when I needed her? The next day, everyone was looking at me like I'd done something terrible, which I apparently did because an anonymous account had posted a picture of me kissing Pierre on Instagram. No, it was all a mistake. I asked Lexi about it, but she was so mad at me. What did I do? That pervert made a move on me. You weren't there when I needed you because you only care about Terrence now. Lexi, I'm so sorry. Please don't do this to me. You're my best friend. No, Blair, I'm just your personal assistant. Oh, not anymore, because I'm resigning. I was crying as she left me. I looked for Terrence and found him in the music room. "Terrence, it's not what you think. Let me explain." "I don't deal with cheaters." I tried to convince him, but my heart broke when he said, "Get lost, Blair. I don't want to see you again." I was totally miserable after that. My best friend and boyfriend were ignoring me, and everyone was calling me a cheater. One day, I passed out in my room because I hadn't eaten all day. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Lexi. "Thank God you finally woke up. You had me so worried. Are you okay? How can I be okay when you hate me now?" "Oh my God, stop. I'm not used to seeing you cry." Lexi then told me that she overheard Francesca and Pierre talking about their plan to set me up. I knew it. I need to talk to Terrence. She then looked away and said, "He went back to Korea this morning." What? Are you freaking serious? I felt like someone had thrown cold water on me. She just bowed her head and avoided my eyes. "Why so soon? Is this a prank?" "I'm so sorry, Blair. I already told him the truth, and he believed me, but he still left." No, this can't be happening." I tried to get up, but Lexi told me that my doctor had advised that I shouldn't leave bed yet. I called Terrence, but his phone wasn't on. I checked his social media accounts and confirmed that he was already back in Korea. I just wanted to sleep and hope that it was all a dream. The next day, I woke up to Lexi's scream. She pulled me out of bed and dragged me outside. There was an unfamiliar jet landing outside. A handsome boy then stepped out, and I swear, my heart jumped with joy when I realized who it was. I ran up to him and hugged him. My dad never wanted a girl. He just wanted to raise a team of healthy young boys. He was very proud of himself for being so manly that he had only produced sons. But Mom had always really wanted a daughter. When she gave birth to me, he glared down at my tiny red face and said to my mom, "So, you finally did it, huh? I swear, if she isn't pretty, you're really gonna pay for it." My mom did everything to take really good care of me and make me pretty. Once she came to me and said, "Listen, you're not allowed to eat junk food ever." And she snatched the candy from my hand. When she left, I opened the lower drawer and took another candy. I ate whatever I wanted behind her back. Mom started taking me to salons when I was 5, and she would leave me there. I would regularly get manicures and pedicures. Every day I'd have a routine of face masks and visits to the hair salon. But no session would go on for more than 10 minutes before I interrupted it. One time, I pushed the ladies away and yelled at them. I took out my stories. "Read this for me, and I will tell Mom you did a great job." They loved it. One day, I also asked them to start teaching me how to read. They said I was too young, but I said, "Try me." I never knew I was going to learn how to read and write in a hair salon. Dad was delighted that I turned out to be so pretty. He used to carry me around on his shoulders all over the neighborhood to show me off. One day, when I was in the 5th grade, my teacher gave me the role of the princess's dad. When Dad heard about it, he came to the school the next day and yelled at the teacher and insulted her. He made her make me the princess or else. When he left, I told the teacher, "I apologize for Dad's stupidity. I'm going to play the role of the princess's dad because I love it." And I hugged her. There was nothing Dad wouldn't do for his favorite child. But suddenly, all that changed. When I was in the 7th grade, I came back home one day feeling really itchy all over. I looked at the mirror and saw my skin was as red as a rotten tomato. Dad came in, of course without knocking, and saw me. He freaked out and quickly took me to the best skin doctor in the city. After examining me, the doctor said I had a rare condition called dermographism, which means skin writing. That's because I could etch my name into my skin using only the pressure of a fingernail. He said there was no reason for why it might flare up at times, and there was really no cure for it. When we left the clinic, I told Dad, "Don't worry, Dad. I will read about this disease and find ways to fix this." Dad looked at me with disgust and said he didn't want a daughter like me. I wished Mom would just slap him, or one of my brothers would tell him he's being a complete jerk. But nothing happened. Dad just turned away and left the house. Why was Dad a terrible piece of ugh? I swore to always keep my condition a secret. I couldn't trust anyone with it, except my best friend Monica. "You should come over tonight so we can read about this disease together." When Dad saw her, he hugged her. "Your parents must be so proud to have such a beautiful daughter." My brothers were even more ridiculous. They knew she was really rich, and my youngest brother kept asking her how many servants she had. The eldest kept hitting on her, and when she told him to stop, he said he would if she paid him $100. I threw my shoe at him and told him he was a pig. I told them all to shut up and took Monica's hand and led her to my room. We both read about the disease for days and found nothing. When I got to middle school, I had eyes only for one boy, Elon. Once, we were sitting in the library. I noticed my hands had started to turn a little red. Feeling alarmed, I let go, but suddenly, Elon pulled me in by the waist and kissed me. Just then, I saw Monica. She was standing there, staring at me with the most hateful expression. She came to me with a manic look and suddenly grabbed my wrist. Instantly, big red welts started to appear. She snatched the friendship bracelet she'd given me, sending beads flying everywhere. "How could you even think of going out with Elon when you knew he's my dream? I hate you." I just stared at her, stunned. "How could I possibly know? You've never said a word. You need to stop seeing him or I'll tell him about your secret." "Oh, how could she?" I said, "Fine, I will stop seeing him." She instantly smiled and hugged me tight, like a psycho. Of course, I wasn't going to stop seeing Elon. Monica wasn't the boss of me. I started dating him in secret. In the school hallways, I would simply walk past him like he didn't exist. But we would meet up outside later every day, and I was fast falling in love. One day, Elon and I decided to skip gym class and meet at the big tree in the schoolyard. Elon had just pulled me in for a kiss when I felt someone drag me away by my shirt. I turned around to see Monica. And this time, she just went insane. She kept shouting, "Liar, liar," as she pinched and poked my arms. Thick, red rashes were popping up like crazy all over my skin. Elon stepped back, looking horrified. "Look, Elon, she's a complete freak." I felt helpless at first, but then I felt a wave of fury rise inside me. I slapped her hard across the cheek and ran off. Elon kept texting me and said he couldn't care less about my allergies. All he wanted was to see me. I didn't reply to any of his calls or messages. One night, I heard a gentle tapping on my window, and I pushed back the curtains to see that it was Elon. "Please, leave me alone, Elon. You deserve someone much better." "I'm not leaving until you talk to me, Lulia." He just wouldn't go away, no matter how hard I tried. I was afraid he'd wake someone up, so I let him in. He took my hands and looked at me earnestly. "Lulia, there isn't a thing about you that could make me love you any less." My heart completely melted, and I let him stay with me for the night. Suddenly, we heard some noises downstairs, and Elon quickly snuck out. A few moments later, I heard a knocking on the window. I smiled and ran to open it, but when I parted the curtain, I almost screamed and fell back in horror. It was Monica. "What do you think you're doing here, you witch?" "I'm here to warn you, that boy is mine. I'm not sharing him with anyone. You better break up with him or else." I locked the window and shut the curtains in her face. Thankfully, it seemed like she'd left. But man, the girl was turning into a complete nutjob. The next day in school, I could see Monica by the lockers giving me a deathly glare. I also spotted Elon smiling and waving at me. If she thought I was scared of her, she was mistaken. I ran up to him, grabbed his face, and gave him a long kiss. When I looked up, she had disappeared. What was this psycho up to? Later that day in art class, I was painting away my self-portrait when suddenly I felt a dash of cold water on my back. I gasped, and to my horror, I saw that my painting was completely ruined. "That's so much better, actually. Now it looks more like you, a freak." I just snapped. I turned around and was about to throw a tin of paint in Monica's face, but I stopped when I saw the teacher coming. My eyes! My eyes! This monster is out of control." "What? I didn't even touch her." The art teacher swooped down in no time and started yelling at me. "Lulia, I will not stand for this behavior. How could you hurt the most gentle girl in class?" She wouldn't listen to a word I said. I kept pointing to my ruined work, but she kept on insulting me and said I'd been raised by savages. I'd just had it. "Shut up, you idiot. I know her daddy's donation set up this art studio. That's the only reason you're taking her side." Of course, I ended up in the principal's office and waited while she called my parents. As soon as I saw Dad walk into the office instead of Mom, I just knew I was ruined. He'd probably ground me for life. The principal pursed her lips. "We are shocked that any student of ours would behave like this. She has no respect for anyone and is a disgrace to this school and to you." I was sure my dad would agree with her. He rose up from his chair and punched the table. "No one talks about my daughter this way. I'll make sure you regret it. She's the smartest girl you will ever meet." And he took me by the arm and we left. On our way home, he finally looked at me directly after such a long time and said, "Don't ever give up on what you want. Be strong and keep fighting." And that was the last time I ever saw Dad. By the time I woke up the next morning, he had already packed all his bags and left for good. "Mom, where did Dad go?" My stupid brother scowled at me. "You finally drove him away. It's your stupid condition that made him so depressed. He couldn't handle having a broken daughter anymore." Mom banged her glass on the table. "Shut up and stop treating your sister that way. All you men are jerks. He left because he's in love with a rich woman who's 15 years older than him." I was stunned. Dad was so confusing. I never really understood him at all. Mom started dating a new man and looked happier than I'd ever seen her. She was making an effort to look good, and I was happy for her. But my brothers weren't happy about it. 2 of them left the house, and the youngest stayed because he was still in school. I didn't miss Dad all that much, really. But his last words were stuck in my head. I kept going out with Elon openly, and Monica stayed out of my way since that day. When I got to high school, though, my condition got much worse. My allergy would flare up at any time. People started to notice and would point or whisper, so I started wearing long-sleeve shirts and pants to hide my skin. One day, Elon came up to me beaming. "Hey, babe, you're coming over to dinner tonight. My place. I can't wait for my parents to meet you." I told him I wasn't sure if I was ready, but eventually I agreed. The minute I stepped into his house, his mom's face froze mid-smile. and she looked at me like I was a demon. "Elon, what's that on her neck and arms? She's disgusting." What a rude woman she was. "Mom, what is wrong with you? You want to keep seeing her? Fine, but you can have another girlfriend, can't you? How about that beautiful rich one who comes here often? What's her name? Yeah, that Monica." I couldn't believe my ears. What a cheater! Elon turned to me and said he could explain, but I just slapped him and left. I was so heartbroken and angry at this betrayal. I never spoke to Elon again. He tried approaching me at school a couple of times, but I always rejected him. One day, I was sitting alone on the bleachers when a handsome jock came and sat next to me. "Hey, I need some help with math. Will you be my tutor?" I knew exactly who he was, even if he didn't know me. "Yes, of course. It's the best revenge ever." "What revenge?" "Oh, never mind. Let's start now." We got closer over time and started going out. One day, Sean invited me over for dinner at his place. As soon as I entered the house, I spotted Monica on the stairs, staring at me in complete shock. This was priceless. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, didn't your brother tell you? I'm his girlfriend." "You can't go out with her. She's a big freak. Break up with her now." Luckily, Sean's parents walked in just then and seemed horrified by Monica's behavior. Her dad told her to shut up and go to her room. She stormed off in a rage. Sean's parents were so lovely. I had no idea how they'd raised a witch like Monica, but I decided to try and mend things with her and went to her room after dinner. Monica was lying on the bed and didn't even turn around to look at me. I sat down and said, "Look, Monica, you and I used to be best friends once. Can we just start over? I forgive you for everything you did to me." "Who asked for your forgiveness?" And in a flash, she'd turned to pounce on me like a wildcat. Before she could hurt me, Sean barged in and pulled her away from me. "Thank you for saving me from your crazy sister." And I started kissing him, just to make Monica angry. She screamed in anger and left her own room. Weeks passed and I graduated from high school with honors. I'd never meant to fall in love with Sean, but I had over this time we'd been dating. One day, my youngest brother came to me and asked me to ask Sean for money. What? I won't do that. I'm not a gold digger, you moron. We got into an argument for an hour until he tried to attack me. I threw a plate at him, but it missed his face by inches. "Fine, I know what I'm going to do." The next day, Sean called me to tell me that my brother was caught last night trying to steal Sean's car. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing. He told me he wasn't going to send him to jail for me. When my brother came home, I yelled at him. He said that he'd had enough of me and Mom, and he left to live with Dad. Whatever. At least I had Sean. We were headed to different colleges, and we promised that we would make a long-distance relationship work. But almost as soon as I left, it got really difficult to get a hold of him. He'd mostly reject my calls and say he was busy, but I could see from his Instagram account that he was partying hard. Then he wouldn't even reply to my messages for weeks. When he finally did, it was to say that he wanted to break up with me because long distance was too hard. Plus, he thought that me and my family were weird and crazy. What a jerk. I was pretty sure he'd found some bimbo. I stopped dating for a whole year and would turn down any offers by guys to go out. I wanted to do well at university so I could make something of myself. One day, I walked into a lecture hall and I couldn't believe my eyes. I never thought I'd ever see him again. It was Elon. He came and sat beside me and said he deserved one chance to explain himself. He said that he never loved Monica, and she kept stalking him and showing up at his place, but